As the tale goes, the Wendigo was once a lost hunter during a brutally cold winter. This man's intense hunger drove him to cannibalism. After feasting on another human's flesh, he transformed into a crazed man-beast, roaming the forest in search of more people to eat. The story of the Wendigo comes from Algonquian Native American folklore, and the exact details vary depending on who you ask. Some people who have claimed to encounter the beast say it's a relative of Bigfoot, but other reports compare the Wendigo to a werewolf instead. But if you ask me, I think the Wendigo is a version of a skinwalker, but the person no longer has the ability to transform back into a human, so therefore they are cursed as the Wendigo form. That's just my opinion. Since the Wendigo is said to be a cold weather creature, most sightings have been reported in Canada as well as colder northern states such as Minnesota. At the turn of the 20th century, the Algonquian tribes blamed many unsolved disappearances of people on Wendigo attacks. For being an insatiable predator, the Wendigo is definitely not the largest or most muscular beast out there. Though he is said to be almost 15 feet tall, his body is often described as decomposing. Perhaps this can be attributed to the notion that he is never satisfied with his cannibalistic urges. Obsessed with hunting for new victims, he is forever hungry until he is eating another person. So to me, a Wendigo is a curse that's a double-edged sword. You're cursed because you're constantly hungry, and you're only hungry for people. On the other end of that sword, you are a very, very good hunter. According to the ethno-historian Nathan Carlson, it has also been said that the Wendigo has large, sharp claws and massive eyes like an owl. However, some other people simply describe the Wendigo as a skeleton-like figure with ash-toned skin. Different versions of the Wendigo legend say different things about his speed and agility. Some claim he is unusually fast and can endure walking for long periods of time, even in harsh winter conditions. Others say he walks in a more haggard manner, as if he's falling asleep. But speed wouldn't be a necessary skill for a monster of this nature. Unlike other terrifying carnivores, the Wendigo doesn't rely on pursuing his prey in order to capture it and eat it. Rather, one of his said traits is his ability to mimic human voices. He uses this skill to lure people and draw them away from civilization. Once they're isolated in the desolate depths of the wilderness, he feasts on them. The Algonquian people say that during the turn of the 20th century, a large number of their people went missing mysteriously. The tribes blame many of the disappearances on the Wendigo, thus calling him the spirit of the lonely places. Another rough translation of Wendigo is the evil spirit that devours mankind. This translation is related to yet another version of the Wendigo that claims he has power to curse humans by possessing them. Once he has infiltrated their minds, he can turn them into Wendigos as well, instilling upon them the same lust for human flesh that he has himself. One of the most infamous cases is the story of Swift Runner, a Native American man who murdered and ate his whole family during the winter of 1879. According to Animal Planet, Swift Runner claimed to be possessed by a Wendigo spirit at the same time of the murders. Still, he was hanged for his crime. Oddly enough, there were quite a few other stories about these spirits supposedly possessing people in communities stretching from northern Quebec to the Rockies. Many of these reports were shockingly similar to Swift Runner's case. The Algonquian tribe describes the creature as a giant with a heart of ice. Sometimes it is thought to be entirely made of ice. Its body is skeleton and deformed, with missing lips and toes. The Ojibwa tribe describes it as, it was a large creature as tall as a tree, with lipless mouth and jagged teeth. Its breath was a strange hiss, its footprints full of blood, and it ate any man, woman, or child who ventured into its territory. So I guess that tells you they're a territorial beast. And those were the lucky ones. Sometimes the Wendigo chose to possess a person instead, and then the luckless individuals became a Wendigo himself. hunting down those he had once loved and feasting upon their flesh. If a Wendigo possessed a person and they became cannibalistic, there was actually a word for it, and it was Wendigo psychosis. So to sum things up at this point, there were two definitions explained of the Wendigo. One was a person who suffered from Wendigo psychosis and they ate their loved ones. Two is the 15-foot, sharp-clawed, large eyes like an owl beast. But there was a third definition of Wendigo. According to the book Rewriting Apocalypse in Canadian Fiction, Wendigo stories were once viewed as illustration of the violent and primitive nature of the very people telling those stories. But ironically enough, these stories might actually represent the indigenous people's response to the horrific violence unleashed on them by non-native people. In fact, many anthropologists believe that the concept of a Wendigo only developed after the native people had contact with the Europeans. So with that being said, there might actually not be a Wendigo beast, but instead they are referring to the Europeans. In their stories, they're describing what the Europeans put them through. Let me know in the comments if you think the legend of the Wendigo is real and what other Native American creatures you believe in.